Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Planetarium show, our second of 2022. We're very excited to be back here. My name is Jessica. I'm the director of the Planetarium, and with me tonight is one of our students who I will let say hi and introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Eli. I'm a physics and astronomy student at UMD.
So tonight we have our second, regular shows that we do at the beginning of the month. Wednesday we did our What's Up January edition, which was looking at astronomical events. And tonight is our constellation story time, where we'll take a look at what stars and constellations are up this month and tell some of the stories behind them as well. But before we jump into that, I was debating whether to do this at the beginning or the end. But Eli, did you see the James Webb news?
Did something new come out
The
today?
primary has successfully unfolded.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Like,
Yeah, we're almost there.
we
How,
are.
how, how much longer is it until it starts getting data?
Well, so we've got another, I think, 2 weeks before it's in its orbit,
Yeah,
and then about 6 months before we get data.
okay, that's what I thought.
Because everything's got to cool down, we got to calibrate everything, but I feel like I'm still in, I don't know if shock or disbelief or denial are any of the correct words, but it's just
Yeah,
like, it's launched, it's
yeah.
unfolded,
You're like
everything is
waiting
going
for something to
smoothly.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
know.
really am. Because, I mean, for years, it's been just a little bit longer and James Webb is going to launch, and
Yeah.
then months of delays, and it's actually happening.
It was funny how fast it like snuck up on us too, because like
Hmm.
we'd just been we'd just been like we got desensitized to like the it's gonna be soon, and then like I feel like it was like on the day I was like, oh, it
Yeah,
launched. Like,
yeah, like I woke up because it was Christmas Day, and I was like, it didn't actually. There's no way. And then I saw
yeah,
all of that. I was like, it launched. I was like,
yeah. It's like, oh,
what? Yeah, so uh, prepare to get some regular updates and fangirling over James Webb over the upcoming months, just like we did when Perseverance landed, who's
mhm.
still doing amazing, by the way. Percy is fantastic. All right, let's get into what tonight's show is supposed to be. So as I said, we're doing our constellation story time. Let me get everything switched over and set up. As we're going through our show tonight, as always, if you have any questions, you can leave them down in the video or in the comments section. Eli is going to keep an eye on that for me and will let me know if questions come up. Do you remember that there is a little bit of a delay in the streaming? So between when I say something and when you hear it over Facebook. So we may not get to all questions right away. There may be a little bit of a delay to them, but anything that we don't get to right away, we will have time to answer those questions at the end as well. All right, so for our constellation story time, we have our program here set up for Duluth, since that is where our planetarium is located, at our current time right now. So right now it's about 7:04. And this is what the sky would look like right now if you were outside and there was, no clouds and very minimal light pollution. And that's a really cool thing about this software, which is called Stellarium, is it allows you to do this for really any date, time, and location. You pick where and when you want to be located, and it'll show you what the sky looks like then. And the other great thing about this software is it's completely free. You can find a link to where to download it in the video description if you'd like to check it out for yourself. Now, I do mention the exact location of where we're at because the sky is going to look different depending on where you are on the Earth. Particularly, it's going to look different depending on your latitude. So while as long as you're in the northern hemisphere, the sky is going to look pretty much like this. The stars may be at just slightly different heights above the horizon. But again, you can go get this for yourself, check it out, see what the sky looks like for your specific location. All right, enough babbling on. So we are in winter, which means our sun is still setting pretty early in the day, which is why we already have the sunset. It's already dark outside. If we were to head out right now and look towards the southwest, you would see a very bright light getting low on the horizon. It should be brighter than the stars that are around it, and that's because it's actually a planet. That is Jupiter. And Jupiter's been hanging out with us really since, what, late spring, early summer. Jupiter's been around for a while, but there he is hanging out right there. We've also got a nice waxing crescent moon up, and some, of course, beautiful stars. You can see the Milky Way itself. Well, let's start looking at some specific stars and constellations. And we are going to get started here in the north. And the main reason I always like to start these constellation shows in the north is because the group of stars that I'm about to point out, or groups of stars, are for most people always up. All year round, you will see these stars up in the northern sky. And so that makes a really good launching off point to kind of orient yourself in the night sky, know where you're looking and what you're looking at, and then you could use those stars to help you find other stars and constellations. So it's a really great starting point. Now, the most probably familiar group of stars up in the north are these 7 stars hanging out pretty low on the northern horizon right now. These 7 stars are the stars of the Big Dipper, right? We have our handle and then the cup of the Dipper. Now, the Big Dipper is actually not a constellation. I hate to break your heart. It's an asterism. It's a smaller grouping of stars within a larger constellation. In this case, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper are the 7 brightest stars in the constellation, or the Greek constellation of Ursa Major, or the Big Bear. So to see the bear, this handle here is actually the bear's tail. And then we have back, ear, nose, chest, front legs, belly, and back legs. And I will highlight it so we can see again, tail, back, ear, nose, chest, front legs, belly, and back legs. That is our Big Bear.
I've been waiting to find a good place to interject with this question. I don't know if it's going to be here soon. In what constellation is the sun? In what constellation is the moon? And what relation do these 2 constellations have with respect to one another? I can tell you where they are.
Yeah, so I would have to go to daytime and look at it to see what constellation the sun is in. I don't remember at this point in time. Let me look over here. The moon is in, and of course I get asked this, which means I can't answer it right away. Hold on.
The moon is in Aquarius right now.
That's what I was thinking.
And the sun is in Sagittarius.
Okay, there we go.
I guess I'm not really sure what they're getting at with what respect do they have to one another.
So they're both constellations in the zodiac.
Oh, okay, I suppose.
Right, because
I guess there was something deeper there.
I'm assuming that's what he was getting at. Yeah, so the sun, the moon, and all of the planets actually follow a very similar path across the sky, and they usually fall along the path of the zodiac. That's actually why the zodiac is kind of quote-unquote special, is it's the path that the celestial bodies take across the celestial sphere. But yeah, and I can show more of that a little bit later as we kind of head over to that side of the sky. All right, so getting back to our northern sky, we had our Big Bear. We call it the Big Bear because we actually have a second bear up here in the northern sky, and this one is the Little Bear. Now, to help us find the Little Bear, we're actually going to use the Big Dipper. And what you're going to do is, once you've found the Big Dipper, you're going to follow the handle into the cup, and then go to the front 2 stars, or the 2 stars at the front of the cup of the Dipper. These 2 stars are known as the pointer stars, because if you connect them in a line and you follow that line, they point you to this bright star right here. This bright star is Polaris, also known as the North Star. And there's a pretty common misconception that the North Star is special because it must be the brightest star in the sky. And you can actually tell looking at our night sky here that it's not the brightest. It's pretty average in brightness. The reason that the North Star is special is because it's the only star in the night sky that doesn't move. All of the other stars move throughout the night. And I can actually show you that. All of the other stars move throughout the night as the Earth spins, as the Earth turns, but Polaris here does not, which means it's always right here in the same place in the sky, right in the north. So it was really important for early navigators because that was their compass at night. They knew if you can find the North Star, it's always going to be north. And of course, once you know where north is, you know your other three directions and you have a compass in your night sky. All right, I'm going to reset time back to right now, just so everything's back the way we had it.
Okay, so we're getting a follow-up on the last question.
Okay.
And I'm going to field this not really as a question. He said, I was asking so that you would identify the full moon in the zodiac sign 6 places away from the sun. The full moon will be in about a week or so. And I'm getting the feeling that this is a question that the commenter knows the answer to. So if you want to put the answer out there, because I don't know if we're going to be able to pick out exactly what that relationship is.
Yeah, I'm going to get through the constellations for this month. And then if we have time at the end, we can fast forward in time and take a look at the full moon and stuff.
Okay.
All right. So, again, we had our Big Dipper. We took our pointer stars that pointed us to Polaris, the North Star. And this is actually the end of the handle of the Little Dipper. And so we have the handle here and then the cup. Now you'll notice that the stars in the Little Dipper aren't nearly as bright as the stars in the Big Dipper, and that makes it extremely difficult to find. A lot of people think that they just aren't looking in the right place if they're trying to find the Little Dipper and can't. Really, that's not the case. It's not you. Unless you have truly dark skies, you're probably only going to see Polaris and the front 2 stars in the cup of the Little Dipper. The other 4 are very dim and difficult to see without very dark skies. So our Little Dipper is also our Greek constellation of Ursa Minor, the little bear. To see that, we have, again, the handle is the tail of the bear. Here we have the back legs, the body, the front legs, and the head would be here. And so we have our little bear. Definitely more of a squirrel shape than a bear shape, in my personal opinion. But that's another good thing to kind of know about the constellations. They don't always look exactly like they're quote unquote supposed to. You do have to use quite a bit of imagination with some of these constellations to see the pictures they're supposedly depicting. All right, so one more constellation over here that is always a really easy one to try and find. That's usually up all year round as well. Again, we're going to take those pointer stars at the front of the cup of the Big Dipper. We're going to trace those. This time we're going to go past the Big Dipper, or past Polaris and the Little Dipper, and head up until we find this big W in the sky. And this W is the Greek constellation of the Queen Cassiopeia. Now, to see a queen, again, you gotta have some imagination. I know some people describe it as if what we're seeing is actually the queen's crown. One of the ways that we depict it is if we're seeing the queen as she's sitting in her throne, and we're getting kind of a profile view. And so we would have kind of, I gotta remember which way is up. I think this is her head. So we would have her head, her back, her upper legs, her lower legs, and her long feet. But again, another case where you got to use some imagination here. But that big W in the sky That is the Greek queen Cassiopeia. Although I will say this is a very prominent set of stars. Actually, all of these are very prominent sets of stars because they are particularly bright, so they stand out amongst the stars in the north. And so you find lots of different constellations involving these stars from cultures all over the world. And one of my favorites involving these 5 stars of the Greek Cassiopeia actually comes from Persia, where they see a camel. And so these are actually the 2 humps in the camel's back, which I think makes a lot more sense. And I personally, that's one of my favorites for this set of stars. Okay, so we are going to turn our attention now over to the east, where we have a very, very prominent set of constellations up in our winter sky, and they are known as the winter hexagon. Now, they're not fully up just yet. We're still missing the rest of one constellation. So I'm actually going to speed up time just a little bit, just to get all of them up in the sky. There we go. So we fast forwarded here to about 9 o'clock tonight. All right. So looking over in the southeastern sky now, the first of the winter hexagon constellations that we're going to look at is the, I would say, most famous, the one that most people know, and it is Orion the Hunter. So for Orion, of course, we have his belt stars. Hanging off of his belt is his sword. Then we have his shoulders and his knees. And then this is either a shield and he's holding a sword or a club, or this is a bow and he has some arrows slung across his back. And that is Orion the Hunter. Now, Orion has quite a few different stories about why he ended up in the nighttime sky. I'm going to tell you one of them, the one that I think is my favorite. And so this story starts with Orion, of course, but Orion is in love with one of the Greek goddesses, particularly, why am I blanking on her name? Artemis. Artemis. That's the one. So Artemis is the goddess of the hunt. And so Orion decides that the best way to impress her is to hunt down every single living creature on this island. So he spends all night hunting down every living creature and piling them up into this giant pile of dead things. And morning comes, and he goes to Artemis all proud of himself and goes, "Look what I did for you. Don't you love me?" Here's the thing, though. She, while being the goddess of the hunt, was only in favor of hunting when you needed items, not hunting for sport or just needlessly killing things. So she was horrified by what Orion has done and decides that he needs to be punished. And she does so by setting a scorpion after him who stings his heel, poisons him, and Orion dies. Well, after he dies, she realizes that maybe she was a bit harsh. So she puts Orion up in the sky where he can then just live his existence out as stars in the heavens. But she wasn't going to let him fully off the hook. So she took the scorpion and she also put it up into the nighttime sky. And that is the summer constellation of Scorpius. And so she placed them both in the night sky, but made sure to put them on exact opposite sides of the sky so that Orion could never take his vengeance out on the scorpion, and the scorpion would not be able to, attack Orion anymore. So that is one of many stories of Orion the Hunter and why he is up in the sky. Now, our hunter here is not alone. He has 2 companions, 2 hunting dogs with him. To find the first, we're going to take Orion's belt. We're going to use those lined up as a pointer to point us down to this very bright star right here. This star is Sirius. This star is actually the brightest star in the nighttime sky, and it is in the constellation of Canis Major, or the Big Dog. That's why Sirius is often known as the Dog Star. And for any Harry Potter fans out there, this is why Sirius Black turns into a dog. Or for any, not proprietors, for anyone who uses Sirius satellite radio, their logo is a dog for the same reason. Now, to see the dog, there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. I have always pictured it as if Sirius is the dog's eye. And so then we have a couple of ears, his mouth, and then his body kind of comes out this way with some legs and his tail. This program draws it a little bit differently and shows Sirius as more of the dog's heart. Again, there is no right or wrong way to this. You kind of just have to use your imagination to connect the dots in the best way you see fit. Now, the other hunting dog that Orion has is kind of an interesting choice. So we find it by hopping from Sirius up and to the left to this next bright star here. This is the star Procyon, and it is in, the constellation of Canis Minor, or the little dog. And that constellation consists of Procyon and the star right here. Yes, it is 2 stars. I don't know why Orion has, I guess, a wiener dog as a hunting dog. There's also a common joke that this is actually just a stick that Orion is throwing for his dog, Sirius. But that is Canis Minor, the little dog. Okay, so those are 3 of the 6 of the winter hexagon. To find the rest, we're going to go back to Orion, go back to his belt. This time, instead of going down to Sirius, we are going to go up to this bright red star here. That red star is Aldebaran, and it is the eye of Taurus the Bull. And so we have his big red eye, and then here's another eye. This is kind of his nose or his snout. We have his horns, and then his body stretches out this way. And so we have Taurus the Bull. Now, inside of Taurus sits a little collection of stars that some people mistake for the Little Dipper because it is small and is kind of dipperish in shape. But this is not the Little Dipper. We saw that was over in the north. This is actually a cluster of stars known as the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters. So this is what we call an open star cluster, which is a group of several hundred stars. But from our vantage point here on Earth, without telescopes, so with just your naked eye, you see 6 or 7 of the brightest stars in that cluster. And again, this is another case where we have a very prominent feature in the sky that a lot of different cultures noticed and told stories about. And because you see either 6 or 7 stars, depending on how good your vision is, the numbers 6 and 7 play a very prominent role in the tellings of these stories. All right, so our last 2 constellations in the winter hexagon. If we follow Taurus's horn up, we are connected to a kind of squished pentagon here. This squished pentagon is Auriga the Charioteer. Now again, gotta use some imagination. So the way that we picture him is as if he is sitting in his chariot. So we have a wheel, and the kind of main body or basket of the chariot, and then this would be Auriga's head popping out over the top. You'll notice that he is currently tipped kind of upside down. He's not having a great time driving his chariot at the moment. I did not mean to click on that constellation. Ignore that. The last of our winter hexagon sits in between Auriga and our little dog, and it's this group of stars here. The 2 brightest stars are Castor and Pollux, and they are known as the twin stars because these are the stars in the Gemini twins. Castor here has a long body and short little legs, And Pollux has a short body and long legs, and they're kind of arm in arm as they're walking along the Milky Way. Now, just like Orion, there are a lot of stories. Ooh, let me turn them on. There we go. There are a lot of stories about the Gemini twins, and pretty much all of them are around them doing something mischievous. My personal favorite involves the twins crashing a wedding and kidnapping the bride. So in this depiction here, they're actually not arm in arm. They're seen carrying the bride running away from the wedding. And I just think that's a hilarious story up in the sky. Now, one that I have decided, just based off of how everything looks, is that the Gemini twins are actually responsible for tipping over Auriga's chariots, and now they're running away before he can catch them. That's just the story I see. And it's always fun to come up with new stories based off of what you see in the stars. So that is our winter hexagon. Again, we have Orion the Hunter, Taurus the Bull, Auriga the Charioteer, the Gemini twins, Canis Minor the little dog, and Canis Major the big dog. Now, the constellation that I accidentally clicked right here is one that I like showing in this program because I struggle to find it in the real nighttime sky. But let me turn on the constellation art, and you can see that right here in between our two dogs is actually a unicorn. And I particularly love this depiction in this program because it looks like the little dog is riding the unicorn, and that is just what I've decided is happening. The little dog is too little to go into battle with Orion, so it has its own little unicorn that it rides into battle with Orion, and I love it. It's my favorite. All right, so that is pretty much the prominent winter sky, as we will see throughout this month. Let me keep fast forwarding time here. And as the night progresses, we start to see, after the winter constellations have risen, we're starting to see some spring constellations. Just a good reminder that, there is going to be an end to winter, and spring is just around the corner. And then, let me speed up time just a little bit more. Ooh, that was probably too fast. I apologize. What I wanted to show you is just before the sun comes up, we're also starting to get a glimpse of some summer constellations as well, up in the very early morning just before sunrise, because again, summer will be right after spring. All right, so I think that is going to bring an end to our constellation story time tonight. Let me flip back over to our Zoom window and we will see what other questions we got, if we got any more.
So it was more so just like an explanation as to what was being gotten at earlier. And it's just the relationship that, you can gauge what angle is being subtended between the moon and the sun based on the phase of the moon. So if it's a full moon, it's like 120. If it's a quarter, if half of the moon is illuminated, it's 90. And so yeah, it's interesting that you can figure out like what constellation what's going to be in based on. I mean, I would assume most people know at least some of the months of the zodiac signs, so you can kind of pick out, oh well, the moon is this phase, and it's this month right now. So getting at that relationship. Alpha Canis Major is a jewel in the collar is the story I was told about
Okay.
Alpha or Canis Major. FYI, Venus was visible in Maryville, Tennessee midday. I got into the shadow of my roof and got just into the shadow with binoculars on a tripod. The binoculars have a field of view of just under 5 degrees. Venus is just about 5 degrees above the ecliptic, so is in the field of view. Binoculars above the obstructed sun. Very thin, but very big.
Yeah. And we did talk about that some in our Wednesday show, that Venus is starting to get very close to the sun. So you can see it if you're very careful with a telescope or a pair of binoculars, but that's not something I would usually recommend for people to try, because you do need to be extremely careful and very skilled and practiced to be able to see that.
Isaac Newton tried it and it did not go very well for him.
It's not going to go well for anyone.
No.
All right. So we'll give this another minute or so to see if any other questions come through.
We just got another one, chicken or the egg question. So with the early constellations and accompanying stories, that's such a weird word to say. Can you try to say that word?
Accompanying?
Yeah, you have to like.
It is weird. Yeah.
Yeah, accompanying stories. Did cultural groups have their stories and then found the constellations to match, or did the stars inspire their cultural stories? I would have to assume some of both.
Yeah, both. There's definitely some of both. Some of it was them seeing a shape in the sky and telling a story of why it was there. There's also a lot of cases of using the stars themselves to just preserve their history. I think China's a really good example of that.
Yeah.
When the Chinese constellations are actually all based off of real life people and places. So it was a way of using the stars to preserve that history and that knowledge. But yeah, definitely both there. I want to do a full show on Chinese constellations. I think it would be really cool. I need to put in the time to learn them to be able to do that. But I feel like it would be a fun excuse to spend the time to do that so that I could, give a show on Chinese constellations.
Yeah.
Because they do have a very interesting setup to their night sky. All right. Now is the time when I usually will promote what we're doing, what shows we're doing next week. As we are just coming off of our winter break, I don't have the schedule quite finished yet, but we will post that information on Monday. So you can check back on our Facebook page Monday for the upcoming shows for next week, and possibly a couple of weeks in advance, depends on how much planning and scheduling I get done ahead of time. But we are still planning on scheduling presenting regularly. I am out of practice still. You can tell I haven't done this in 2 weeks. We are keeping to our regular twice-a-week schedule of Wednesdays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central. We've asked this a few times, but if there is any show in particular or any topic that you would like for us to cover, please let us know. Because we have been doing this for almost 2 years now, and we would love some new ideas on shows that you want to know, things that you want to hear about. So please let us know if there's anything that you would like to see, and we can try and make that happen, because I know I would like to come up with some new ideas, but after 2 years, I feel like we've done just about everything.
Yeah. So we just got another question. Where is the Webb telescope in the sky? You definitely can't see it with your naked eye.
Not anymore, no.
No. Also, I mean, I think you'd probably be pretty hard pressed with like an amateur telescope too.
I know that people were seeing it right after it launched.
Yeah.
But if you want more information on exactly where it is and what's going on, I still have the link to its webpage in the video description. They did a fantastic job with this webpage, telling you exactly where it's at, how fast it's moving, what's going on, all of the steps that it needs to go through to get successfully. It's great. So you can go check out that link. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. We appreciate having, the 2 weeks off for break just to give everyone on our staff a little bit of break, but we're also very excited to be back doing these. I promise the rest will shake off. But yeah, so again, thank you. We hope to see you at one of our future shows. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.